All right. Well, we are here today with Emily LaRusch of Back Office Betties. And Emily, it has been a while since we last talked, and I'm really excited to finally have you on our podcast. Um, Back Office Betties is, I think, really an innovator in a lot of ways, including your messaging and your marketing. And I would like to jump in with, because you have a superhero theme on your website to a large extent, and every superhero has an origin story. I'd like to jump in with your origin story.
Okay, that's a good place to start. There's so many reasons why what we do is important to me, but particularly as it relates to helping small law firms, I can share an experience of when my brother found out his wife was having an affair. They're military. The divorce was going to be contentious. It was going to be complicated and he was beside himself. So I said, I'm going to jump in and help. And I try to call around to a few different places. And I would have people, they answer law office, not the end of the world, but not the best thing either. But it started off impersonal and it didn't get any better. So that's where I have an issue with that. It was like, people would say, "Oh, yeah, I need you to come in and pay $350," or "I don't even want to talk to you. Tell your brother to call me." I get that. I know you want to talk to a decision maker. Um, but in this case, you know, they just weren't putting any value into it. They weren't selling the value of the firm. They weren't giving me any reason to open my wallet and come in or send my brother in there to help. Um, and I just think there's no excuse for it. These things are free. Customer service costs you nothing and it gains you everything. So I'm wildly passionate about providing good experiences for people and helping them feel, warm and fuzzy.
So I want to get back to your origin story in a minute because I think that there's a lot there. But first, I want to fast forward just a bit, or maybe a lot. I'm not sure exactly the time frame here. You have one of the premier intake services for law firms out there. And we have several mutual customers slash clients. I hear nothing but great raving reviews about how you handle, how you and your team handle the intake. And I think it's, because we play in the marketing space, intake and marketing go so hand in hand that without the latter, the former is absolutely useless. So, for our audience that hasn't heard of you or experienced Back Office Betties yet, can you tell us a little bit about what you and your team do? And then we'll get back to your origin story.
Yeah, so the quick and dirty is we answer phones for small law firms. That's the quick and dirty of it. Now, the little more expansive version is, we're not, you can't compare us apples to apples with the answering services of the world. Because when I started this thing, I said, I am not going to be like the other guys. And part of it, you commented earlier about our branding and things like that. Well, let me just tell you my secret is I had to be scrappy. I had to zig when others were zagging because when I started, I had no money. So I had nothing to try and do promotions with or advertising. I had to be scrappy. And so anyway, so that's kind of why we got really creative with what we're doing and wanting to add extra services. So I said, I'm going to do scheduling. I'm going to offer bilingual services. We'll jump into law pay and take those consult payments. Like whatever it is you need, Mr. Attorney, I want to be there doing it. I don't want to be a glorified message taker.
And it's so useful in the marketplace because there are so many answering services out there that's what they do. They answer the phone and they'll read the script and that's it. And one of the reasons why we've been so happy to refer our members at Lawlytics over to Back Office Betties and your team is because of the flexibility. Because you can't really um, you can't really paint every firm into exactly what most answering services want to do. And so can you tell us a little bit more about kind of the range of services and how you when an attorney comes to you, how you determine what they need, how they should approach it, and so forth?
So our plans are actually based on a needs basis. So they start off really, really simple and then they grow. So they're designed to start with the brand new solo person. They might need someone to take messages and book a few simple appointments, to someone who's getting more sophisticated. Maybe they need us to send Clio leads over to them or integrate with their CRM. Maybe they need us to go into Slack. We have some larger firms who are like, hey, send me a Slack every time I get a call. No problem. So things like that that you don't generally find. And really, I wish I could show you a map of some of our call flows for our more complex clients who have maybe 5 different case types, and every case type is going to have a series of questions. But if you answer one of them this way, you're going down a whole nother road. And so that's where, I mean, I kind of geek out on that because I like to design those call flows.
Well, and for those of you who are listening, stay tuned because at the end, Emily has an offer that she's going to present to listeners for the ability to download a book that she's put together called Wildly Effective Intake Script Builders. And it really shows the detail that you all go into in kind of designing these workflows and these scripts. And I'm excited to get into with you all of the considerations that go into answering the phone, because I think even for attorneys who maybe have a full-time receptionist during the day, like a lot of attorneys don't know this. They just think just answer the phone and see what's going on, which is why you get people that say law office,
Right.
and so there's a lot that goes into that, and I'd like to get into that in a little bit. In looking through, and I've been, we've known each other for several years, and I've been watching your marketing and have always been impressed with what you're doing. It seems like you and your team have a lot of fun being scrappy in your
Yes.
marketing. Um,
Yes, we
I think
do.
can you tell me about how that like creative process happens? Because it seems like there's like a lot of maybe collaboration and like team spirit that goes into it.
I like to say I'm kind of an idea factory. I'm not good at much else, and my team knows this. So they know if we want to get something done. Emily's not really the one, but the ideas I have a lot, and I wish I was an Elon Musk type brain, but I'm not. So I have to R&D a lot of things, rip off and duplicate, and not necessarily rip off. I should say rob, modify, and duplicate. It should be RM D. But and so one of the coolest things I've got, share a story, is I'm talking to a guy who's in the water industry. In this water industry, they have to go on site and do these inspections. Every company has to do them. It is required by their trade. But what he did is he gave the inspection a proprietary name because the consumers have no idea that every water company they call is doing the same inspection. They have no idea, but he gave it this really cool name, and he says like we're the home of the blah 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 20-point water inspection, and he taught me that you create a name for your process. So this is nothing, it costs you nothing, but you can do
Mhm.
this for your consultations. Create a name for your consultation, like the stress-free divorce process. We're going to give you a full 10-step process by the time you leave that consult. Come up with a creative name. It literally costs you nothing, and it will make you stand out. We've done that with, we call it our call flow blueprint. We've done it kind of with our wildly effective intake script builder. I mean, you call up and you sign up with the service, they're going to ask you, how do you want your calls handled? We put names to it, and it definitely makes you stand apart. So that's something, a free nugget for little law firms: create processes and give them a fun name.
And there's such a crossover there to a little bit up the funnel in their website or their other marketing, because I imagine attorneys get a lot of good ideas in dealing with your team and your process when they're setting things up, that they're like, oh, I need to kind of put that out there. So there's, everybody says call for a consultation. But if there's a little bit more, there's more pizzazz behind it or whatever, it seems like it makes it much more of a compelling case to differentiate the firm. Um, Talking about you being scrappy, a lot of attorneys are there, and a lot of attorneys are permanently there, especially when you're dealing with solo practitioners and small law firms. I think anybody who's been there and done that or is going through it right now can really relate to, you've got to try to make your advantages and create your systems and your larger purpose with a limited amount of resources. So I think it's very interesting to your story in particular, but also I think it's something that attorneys can learn from, in general. So do you mind walking us through a little bit about kind of the how you made it work, building this great business that you've built on a shoestring?
Absolutely. So I love fractional employment. I mean, we are actually fractional employees of law firms. So I like utilizing
Mhm.
fractional services as well. And I get it. You go out, you hang up your shingle, and you're probably a little entrepreneurial, as am I. It's impossible for us to implement everything and wear all the hats. It just is. And it's going to take more work up front. That's just the way it is. And I sometimes will tell myself, you just have to push through this because if you can set up the process, it'll run on autopilot. So sometimes you have to give yourself that extra push. But where I've found a lot of help is you can hire a virtual assistant for just, 10 hours a month even to help roll out and implement some of these things. You may say, well, I would like to name my consultations. I've even gone on Fiverr and for like 25 bucks hired someone to just come up with 100 names and I'll go in
Mhm.
and I never pick the ones that they suggest, but they get my wheel spinning because I'm not the most creative person. I wish I was, but it's little hacks like that that have helped. Super affordable, and then getting someone to come in behind me who can put 5 or 10 hours of work for very little into implementing something and getting it on autopilot has just been a game changer.
That's great. So you kind of jumpstart the creative process by not saying, I got to figure this all out myself, which is what a lot of small business owners and solopreneurs do. And you're
Yeah,
leveraging those resources that are out there and kind of harvesting those ideas to spark your own. Do
yeah.
you see that happening with your attorney customers as you're working with them?
The very successful ones, absolutely. The very successful ones, some of my favorite ones have come in. They might have one paralegal or one part-time person, and over time they've built a team, and now it's a couple of attorneys and several team members, and they dial in their processes. And I get it. I know that's so hard to do. It's so much easier said than done. Even for myself, I will a lot of times want to do the task list work that you can mark off, and you can't really quantify your creative time. And so I've scheduled it. There's
Mhm.
a resort Miraval where it's a no cell phone zone. So they give you these cute little sleeping bags. You pop your phone in there. I went there and just the ideas for just 24 hours, one night. So the point is intentionally saying, I have to have my creative time. I have to unplug because in my mind, it's what feeds the baby and is going to grow it.
Mhm.
So I can have a mediocre company that I'm always stressed about, or I can have something smooth flowing.
Yeah, I notice that the attorneys that approach the components of their practice, whether it's their intake system or their website or their practice management software or their workflow with their employees, when they approach those things as table stakes, and just something to check off, the results are kind of undifferentiated, uninspiring. And yeah, they may eke out a living, but it's those that we observe that do exactly what you just said, where they have this kind of creative ideation process where they're always thinking, what can I do differently? So it sounds like you've had the privilege to work with some attorneys like that, and they really respond well. How do you go about trying to bring those that are more like, just answer my phone and say this and don't bother me about it anymore? Like, Do you get those, first of all? And how do
Yes.
you make sure that they're getting the best value?
I would say the bulk of our clients fall in that category. And so I think that's such a great question because just today I blocked out, it was only 90 minutes. So I blocked out 90 minutes. I brought the team in and I said, guys, some of our clients are missing out on business, and it's not because of our failing, it's because they don't know what they don't know, and they don't know we need to improve the intake process. So, how do we as a team get together and reach these clients? How do we let them know? And so, one of the ideas that got mentioned was creating a quality scorecard of here we've listened to your calls, so basically, we are the manager of your team. You don't have to manage them, we're managing it. I'm going to give you a manager's report on how they're doing in areas that I see we can improve. And some of that might be asking you, what's a couple nuggets that we can use to build value and really reaching out. So that was one idea that we had to try. But it's again, it's something we struggle with as well because I don't want to tell my clients how to run their business, but I
Hmm.
also want to manage their employees and provide that feedback for them on what we can do to improve things for the firm.
I've noticed it amongst our clientele, and this is true with myself as well. It was true in my practice. It's true with employees that we hire. The ones that are the most coachable tend to go the furthest, and the ones that have kind of an intractable, like I'm always right, you need to do it my way, and even though I don't really know about this so much, I'm the attorney, and so you're going to listen to me. We see them kind of, I guess, not giving it as much attention as the more coachable ones. And I'm always looking for ways to help my team break through to the less coachable ones, to kind of open their eyes and say, look, there's this whole other universe that you are not noticing. And we're trying to get you to see it, but we can only, virtually show you so much. And we can only say it so many times, and either you're going to be open-minded to it or you're not. It seems like you've had some success opening people's minds. Do you have any advice on that?
I wish I feel like there's so much more I could do. So I maybe we're a little bit successful in some ways on it, but one of my personal mission statements for the business is that I want to support entrepreneurial lawyers and I want to support the entrepreneurial dream through the power of example. And I think sharing each other's stories is probably the best thing that any of us can do is share success stories. Um, because I wasn't personal growth minded probably until I hit my 30s. I was closed off to it, and I find people are in that camp. You either are or you aren't, but it's not impossible to turn that corner. And I think for me, seeing someone else who had turned the corner, and I was like, I identify with those things. I too could maybe have these things. I think we all tell ourselves a lie, and the lie is that I can't have what Dan has because he's got something I don't have inside me, and that's a lie. Nobody's got it. We're not special. I'm not special. I'm sorry, Dan, you're special, but you're not special. There's nothing magical inside of us. Anyone can have a great success. It's just being open to being coached and I don't know, just providing the
I agree.
stories. That's the only thing I can say is we got to keep telling the story.
I agree. Being coachable, hearing the right things from the right people, and having perseverance.
Yeah.
I take perseverance over innate talent any day, because it's really the people that persevere that
Yeah, because you're
we see
guaranteed to get
winning
knocked down. Guaranteed.
100% of the time, and anytime, whether you're a any kind of small business owner, whether you're an attorney that owns a law firm, it's going to happen. So expecting perfection is a pipe dream. I'm looking at your action figure doll, and I have to say that this is probably the best about us page presentation that I've ever seen on a website. And not many people and not many companies could pull that off, but you and your team have pulled it off very well. And I want to hear a little bit about that just because it's so unique. And then I'd like to go back to what happened in your 30s that caused that shift that you just talked about.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay.
So the doll. Um, I feel like boring is basic, or basic is boring. I can't have an about page that would look like it belonged on any website. That's kind of my philosophy on a lot of things. A lot of people laugh at our
Mhm.
business name. I know some competitors, I've hired some of their employees, and they have some vile ways that they twist our name and they laugh about it. But I say it's memorable. So I said, but you remembered it, didn't you? So I love that. So I saw actually a friend of mine, he did the action figures.
Mhm.
Travis Luther. He's actually from he does like trial line software for lawyers,
Okay.
and he's got it up on his site. So I'm going to give him full credit. I loved it. I asked him, can I please steal this? I think it's such a great idea. So R&D, that's where it came from.
That's great. I'll have to check out his website. And yeah, what a great presentation. Complete with the back of the box loves, hates, and fun facts. For example, for those that are listening that don't know this, Emily loves spontaneous trips and guacamole, yoga, and happy people. Uh, and yeah, it's compelling. And I've noticed over the years some of your social media marketing, it can even get a little bit like most companies that market to lawyers are fairly buttoned up, fairly stuffy, and yours has always been playful, and at times even bordering on a little bit crass.
Yeah, well, I like happy people, and if you can't
Mhm.
laugh, we're probably not going to work well together anyways. So for me, one of our targets, our biggest population of clients is solo attorneys. There's
Mhm.
600,000 of them out there. I don't need them all, you know. I want to help the ones who are going to laugh with me and, that we have a good vibe with. And all of your vendors should be that way. I don't want to work with anyone who's
Abs-
stuffy and buttoned up.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Life's too short. You have to find people to work with that are compatible and complementary. Otherwise, you're just setting yourself up. And fortunately, we both work in such a big market that we really do have our choice of targeting those that really get it, that fall into a certain profile that we know we can really help.
Yeah, it's a
So
fine line because I don't want to be, I do want to be, I'm professional, I'm driven, I want to accomplish great things for our clients. And so I try not to cross the line of being too casual. Maybe it happens sometimes, but I do think you have to balance it a little bit.
well, and people, when they call a law firm, usually they're pretty serious because they are facing, especially when they call small law firms, they're facing a situation that's not fun, that's nerve wracking, maybe even terrifying. And having somebody on the other end of the line that has a compassionate amount of humor, that can kind of relate to them as a human being and can make them feel at ease with, if I'm calling and I say, look, I just got arrested for doing X, Y, or Z, or, this other thing just happened, or I'm about to do this thing, whatever the case is, it's nerve wracking. And,
It
having,
is.
having that humor sets people at ease.
It is. I try not to hire. We don't have a lot of those super pumped up cheerleaders on the team who are like, "You got a DUI? Okay, let's get you set up." You know, I actually, the people on my team, I might be a little bit that way. That's my personality, but the people on my team are actually very sweet, very empathetic. They're very friendly. They're the kind of
Mhm.
person that you want to tell all of your woes to. So making sure you have the right people in the right spots is really important too.
Yeah, and being able to read people and knowing when it's appropriate to bring a little extra energy, or take the energy level down a notch. Um, My first, well, not my first experience. My first experience with a receptionist was in a shared, really high upscale, high-rise Seattle office building, and that receptionist was absolutely professional. Really helped me start my career. Second one, not so much. Was she was learning, she was young, and she was answering the phones for like 10 different people, and there was I tell this story that just it's always stuck with me. I get back from going from court to court and get my messages, which back in the late 90s, early 2000s were on pieces of carbon paper. And it said the guy's name, and he called because he's charged with pestering a prosecutor. And I looked at it and I'm like, well, what does that mean? I've never heard, I don't think, is there some kind of harassment charge? I didn't call the guy back because it already been like hours. And the next day when I asked her about it, she started filling in details that she didn't put into the notes, including area of town. And then I kind of tied it together. Okay, I did criminal defense, and it was that she mistranscribed it. He was charged with patronizing a prostitute,
Oh
not
my
pestering
God.
a prostitute.
That's hilarious.
and and so when she came to that realization, when I said, "Are you sure it wasn't patronizing a prostitute?" She goes, "Oh yeah, that was it." Just matter of factly, like that was when I knew I needed to hire somebody. And when I finally got an experienced professional paralegal answering my phone, she would pre-sell my potential clients that called. She would talk me up. She would get people so excited to come in and meet with me that by the time they met with me, there was this, like, for a young attorney, there was this mythology that she had built up around me, which, probably wasn't super deserved at that point, but nonetheless, it gave those potential clients confidence. And in reading through the giveaway that we're going to talk about at the end of this podcast, it sounds like you have a process that really designs kind of a similar outcome for your customers or your clients. I would love for you to talk about that. We still have plenty of time if you have time to stick around. I also kind of want to hear that transformation from when you went from being coachable and or not coachable and not proactive to being both of those things in your 30s and leading you to the success that you are today. So
Awesome.
where would you like to start?
Let's dive in with the probably the easier one is talking about my transition in my 30s into I, I say like it's almost like two different human beings, so it's kind of crazy. But when I had my first son, was kind of the first life crisis I experienced, where I thought I questioned everything about my life, the way I was living it, the way I was thinking, and I wanted to do better for him. So a friend gave me the book The Secret, which kind of got me on the self-help journey. I was like, this is kind of cool. I'm into it. Then I got to see Tony Robbins speak at a secret conference. Um, and things really spiraled from there. And I did the stuff that they were saying you should do. And my life started getting better. My jobs were getting better. My opportunities were getting better, relationships. So I learned from that moment on, when a coach who has had success in the thing that I want to become tells me, I think this is what you should do, I'm going to do it. I'm going to give it a shot. And I've done that with my business coaches too. One of the things people have commented to me is that they can't believe how quickly and what an implementer I am. And I say, I don't feel like I'm anything special. It's just that I feel like you're a coach. You've done this. You're an expert at it. You tell me this is going to make my life better. I'm going to go home and I'm going to do it tomorrow. And I do.
That's great. I've heard so many people have their lives changed by The Secret or some presentation of the law of attraction.
Think and
And
Grow Rich is probably the big one.
with yeah, and there's certainly a lot buried in there. But you talk to attorneys, and attorneys tend to be very cerebral, and a lot of them, like, okay, that seems a little bit too mystical, or it's just for the types of stuff there. And I think a lot of them are kind of into that, but don't maybe necessarily want to talk about that
Yeah, I
in
don't tell anyone. So to tell you, that was a lot, but because I don't tell
well
anyone about the woo woo.
well now you've told our whole audience. Are
Now
you
I've told
okay with that?
everyone it's fine. It's changed my life, so why shouldn't I share?
Positive visualization and, kind of projecting an outcome. I can't tell you how many times in life and in business I've seen something, and then I've gone out and created it because the vision was vivid enough. And I think really that's what it's talking about when it comes down to it, isn't it? Just, if you're not a believer in, some, external deity or mystical force driving it, maybe it's just the subconscious that's driving it once you kind of set that intention to go there. Either way, if the result is the result, does it matter?
Exactly. I say that all the time. So my team is not, I don't get woo woo with my team. I've
Mm-hmm.
heard of CEOs who open a meeting with meditation. That's not me. But I do try and share through example. Like recently, when I get really, really stressed and I'm like, I hate the traffic. I hate being late. And I get on that little train of thought. So my new thing
Mm-hmm.
is stop the thought and find three things to be grateful for right now in this moment. And sometimes it's just that the air conditioning's on and that I have air conditioning and it's hot. And that I have a car and that my car is full of gas. It could be really basic, but it
Mm-hmm.
shifts my mind and it calms me down, and which is better for the body. It's better for the mindset. So, woo woo or not woo woo, if it makes your life better, why not?
Yeah, I look at it all as a set of tools, and you know, who are you to tell me? Not you personally, but who are you? Like the general you. Who are you to tell me that you know a God exists or doesn't exist, or that this is real or that's real, or this is science and this is bullshit?
Yep,
For me, it's take what's useful, and if it's useful to you, it's definitely worth um, employing. Um,
absolutely. I have a
so
philosophy on life too, where I say, if you're telling me that this is garbage, but you're kind of a miserable human, well, I don't take advice from people who are not a success at what I'm trying to accomplish. So always with a grain of
yeah,
salt.
advice is plentiful, and some of it's more valuable than others. So, you talked about not talking about that stuff amongst your employees. I'd love to talk about how you do manage your team. Especially because you've got this team that's not only working for you, but they're working for a lot of law firms. So how do you um, how do you navigate that? How do you make sure that you have people that are fully bought into not only your mission but to the mission of each individual law firm that you serve?
Well, most importantly is a core values match. So we've got our core values defined really well, and they're not just, the sign on the wall or in the handbook. We actually
Mm-hmm.
measure every month. So when we do our performance reviews, not only are we measuring regular KPIs on how we're performing, but we're looking at how well we're adhering to our Bettyisms, we call them. So one's an ownership
That's awesome.
mentality. So today I had someone call me up and she said, "You know what? I was in this meeting, you said something. I was kind of questioning myself to wonder, am I being singled out right now?" And I told her, I don't want you to ever worry that I'm going to slip a passive aggressive comment in an admin meeting.
Mm-hmm.
If I had an issue with you, I would have said it out. Here's really what my thought process is. But then I tied in that conversation to a Bettyism. And I said, thank you so much for taking an ownership mentality, picking up the phone, calling me, laying it on the line. You're owning your role, you're owning your success here, and you're not going to spend the day questioning and wondering. So I always try and tie in our core values. Um, I think that's probably mission critical for every small business.
What's your true north that drives you in your business? If you had to boil it down to, a sentence or two, what drives you?
Oh gosh, this is going to go deep. So
Okay.
let's talk about childhood wounding.
Okay.
All right, so the thing that drives me is I was a failure in school. I was a failure at a lot of things. My sister got tours of Yale. I didn't even get a tour of the community college. It was like she's hopeless. She's the loser of the family. So really, it's my big. I'm not garbage. I'm going to do better than all of you. And no one really held my hand, and so I kind of want to hold the hands of others. So that's it.
That's great. That is great. And there are so many people in that book with that story, and whether it's you know, academics or sports or any kind of feeling less than, um, taking any of those types of perceived failures and turning them into successes. That's what I love. I mean, that's what isn't that what like every like feel good story is
Yes,
about.
every time. It's overcoming the obstacles and then seeing them as a gift on the other side of it.
Do you use any of the modern meditation apps or devices or anything, or do you kind of self manage with that?
Okay, so I am super basic on my meditation. I
Hmm.
literally listen to the air conditioning and I just focus on that or any other sound. It might be
Uh-huh.
traffic. I've been teaching my son who's 11. He has a lot of anxiety, and I remember one day he can hardly breathe. He can't console himself, and the train was going
Hmm.
by. And I said, just listen to the train, close your eyes and breathe,
Mm.
and like let's breathe in and out while we're focusing on the sound of the train. And by the time it was done, he was calm. And so for me, it's a trick because you can find a noise like that anywhere.
That's really smart. I'm gonna give that a try. Um, you know, I used to have a lot more time and a lot more space to be a little more introspective, and I've been trying to get back to that more recently. And so I'm a member of Peloton, love that. Tried their meditation, couldn't get into that. Now I'm trying Headspace, and it worked for like the first like 3 times, but now it's actually kind of oddly anxiety inducing when it says, "Hey, is it? It's time for you to be calm." When it flashes up. So having the discipline to do that, I think a lot of being a business leader, or a successful person in general, is being able to kind of self manage, control our emotions, and it seems like you're very self aware. And it's amazing that you're teaching your son that at that age.
I have a really ADD personality or ADD history. So one of the other things I can tie in some meditation at the end of yoga. Sometimes I have to
Mm-hmm.
exhaust myself physically, or I can't sit still for 3 minutes and meditate. So usually my meditations are short and sweet, but they get the job done.
Yeah, that makes sense. To combine the physical exercise, just that whole self care. I think with a lot of lawyers that is lacking. Have you seen that permeate through your company's culture at all?
Um, I try. It probably hasn't gotten where it needs to. I think some of the things that I can implement would be perks like gym memberships and things like that.
Hmm.
But I'm trying to walk a fine line between forcing. I have I know I go full throttle on personal growth, and so I
Hmm.
really try and hold it back from my team because I don't want to push my thoughts and philosophies onto them. But when I
Yeah.
get someone who's like, "Hey, Emily, can you tell me more?" I'm like, "Blah, blah, blah. What can't I tell you
Hmm.
about this? Let's do it. I'll pay for it. I'll put you in coaching. What do you need?"
Yeah, that I feel the same way. It's like I love helping team members, learn and grow personally. And I usually get just as much out of my conversations with them as I hope they get out of me. But it is kind of a fine line when you're the boss, that you don't inadvertently or unwittingly hold somebody captive to things that you might think that you benefit from, know that you benefit from, but they might think that they do. I can't remember the name of the movie, but I'm always reminded of, there's this, maybe you do know what the movie is. It's a Steve Martin movie, and he's like a grocery store mogul. And is this ringing a bell at all?
Not yet.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look it up.
But I love
I wish
Steve
I would
Martin.
have. So it's like the theme is like he runs, he's the CEO or maybe the owner of a chain of like Whole Foods type grocery stores, maybe in the pre Whole Foods being as big as it is days, and he rewards his employees with X number of minutes of uninterrupted eye contact, and I kind of use that as this like caricature of like, you got to be really careful with what you foist on those who are, kind of your captive audience.
Yeah, it's like giving the gift they want to receive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the way that his character presents it, it's like this guy is just so egomaniacal and oblivious to the fact
Oh,
that
that's
it's like
hilarious.
super awkward and so forth. Um, I'd love to talk a little bit more about the meat and potatoes of what you do so that attorneys, understand how valuable your service is. I'd like to cover a little bit more of the process maybe that you go through to make sure that they have the best intake scenarios for them, whether it's phone, whether it's live chat, how you set that up. And then I'd also, if you have a few more minutes after that, talk maybe about some of the technologies that you see law firms using and that you see as maybe more effective than others in terms of intake and management.
Okay, awesome. I'll start with the technology on the intake. I love a web form, which is especially great when you work with a company like ours, and you're outsourcing and we have to actually log into something. It's going to take a lot more time. It's really cumbersome. So anything with a web form, like Infusionsoft has them,
Mm-hmm.
Zoho CRM has them. Um, and then we also integrate, we have an integration with Clio Grow, which is nice. We don't have
Mm-hmm.
to log in for that because it's integrated with our system. So I always say if you can automate and make things simpler, make it a clickable link for your team. And I've done this for my team. Even though they're logged into our CRM, I make a web form so that
Mm-hmm.
when they're doing an intake on a new client, they're just filling out the web form. They don't have to hassle with logging in, create a lead. It's just too many buttons to click when you're also trying to create a good experience and have a conversation with someone.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So, with the Clio Grow integration, did you also were you previously integrated with Lexicata, and
Yes.
when that changed hands and so forth? Um, do you integrate with other legal specific CRMs or intake systems?
Not yet. That is on
Mm.
my, 2022 list to do
Yeah.
is to get crazy with our technology.
Yeah, we're going there as well. We've been longtime integration partners with Lexicata and then with Clio Grow, and we really we support a couple click embed of any external form that has the ability to embed in a website. But yeah, getting more specific, there's so many great law practice management and intake pieces of software that are coming out. I'm loving the innovation that I'm seeing. Um, are you all working from home during COVID?
Yes, so part
And
of being scrappy means I've never had
mhm,
an office full of team members.
okay.
We've always been a
Hmm.
remote workforce. So when COVID hit, we had a couple logistical things with people who now had kids home and they were out of school,
Hmm.
but really not much changed.
Yeah, so you didn't miss a beat, and I imagine that's a real benefit for your employees. Both in terms of the job and in terms of them being able to perform their best.
Absolutely. Well, we they stay
Just
on the job longer, which is great. It's been wonderful. So, in the beginning I said, "Oh, one day I'd like to have an office and I want it to be beautiful and decorated and all of these things." And my team members were like, "Who's going to go there? Because it's not me. I like being at home." So I said, "Yeah, so do I." So it's worked out for us. In the past, our competitors have called us out by name and said, "Oh, those people work from home. They're probably, doing laundry and have kids running around." And I can show you, I say, we are tethered to the
Mhm.
computer. I know if they come off their tether. So our team members are not coming off their tethers. They're not running around. They show up and they are working and they're professional people with high integrity, again, core values. So, uh, yeah, it's been great and it works out really well.
And I would counter that with, okay, so they're at home and you're able to enforce accountability and you know the phones are getting answered because I'm sure you probably have this down to a science in terms of you know how many times each phone has rang before it was picked up, and you
Hmm.
probably have quality assurance standards surrounding that. But what's the alternative? You know, if you go to another company that's criticizing you because you're allowing your employees to work in the comfort of their own home, um, you know, really most call centers look like sweatshops with cubicles, and sometimes it's seas of cubicles, and the air conditioning is too high, and the air is recirculated, and it's fluorescent lit, and on and on, kind of, you know, soulless. And you
Absolutely.
want the people that answer your law firm's phone to sound like, if not happy human beings, at least self-actualized human beings, and not like sitting there waiting to raise their hand to take a restroom break, to get
Exactly.
taken out of the queue.
Exactly.
Um,
So let's get into that selling the consultation and pretty much
mm-hmm,
this is where we kind of differ from other services. So
mm-hmm,
anyone can answer your phone, they can transfer calls if they ask for Dan, they can get the call to you, they can take a message. That's pretty standard stuff. Where it gets really in depth is the intake. And so, this is, I can tell you kind of what I wish our clients would have prepared before they come to us because a lot of them don't. And I'm not going to try and force my ideas on how anyone should run their business on anyone. But I can say, here's what works really well for our most successful clients.
great.
So, the first thing is how do we build more value with our customers? And so it's something I ask my team all the time. The law firm should be asking. Number one, we mentioned it earlier, was coming up with a proprietary name. So some examples that I have in our wildly effective sales script builder are the 1 hour strategy plan or the debt freedom plan, which would be great for a bankruptcy client. Um, Things like that. So you give the consultation a name. That's
Mm-hmm,
ideal. And then we need to know basics. And when you have free consultations, they're a whole lot easier to sell than one with fees. So we actually
mm-hmm,
have some stuff in our script builder related to if you charge fees, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Pay for your time. But we have to really build the value in that because people
mm-hmm,
otherwise don't understand what they're paying for. So part of that is, okay, Dan, I know I'm going to ask you for $350, but what we're going to do is a full case analysis for you, and you're going to walk out of
mm-hmm,
here with your, debt freedom plan, and you're actually going to have that, and it's an actionable plan. You can take it to another attorney, or you can stay with us and retain us. So you want to make sure you're building the value of like what they're going to get and understanding timelines, expectations. Again, building the value. We're telling them, here's what to expect with this particular type of case. It's going to be, possibly, I'll use the bankruptcy example, 5-year plan on a chapter 13, and you're going to be making payments every month. And, here's what to expect, and here's how long it's going to take you to file. Here's what you can expect to happen with your car. Here's the documents I need before your first meeting with the attorney so he can give you the best advice. um, so kind of going through that.
that is really detailed, and it goes well beyond most of the services that we've seen, especially on the live chat side. And can you speak a little bit about? I know you do both live chat and voice service. Um, what can you talk about the dynamics of one versus the other in terms of getting people booked for consultations and excited about them and selling the value of them?
Well, yeah. So on a live chat, kind of the goal is to get someone on the phone or to get them booked for a
Mm-hmm,
consultation. Some people just simply don't have the time, and that's fine. So you really have
mm-hmm,
to segment. You really need to know on the live chat, how am I going to talk to different people? Is this person really someone who's a tire kicker? They're just fishing for free information. Is this person someone who's just a super busy person? Maybe they're an executive and they're really busy and they just don't want the nonsense. We go straight into figuring out what they need and then answering the problem for them. And then other ones who are just kind of your nervous Nellies and they're just dipping their toe out there, and those ones need to be nurtured a little bit more.
Hmm.
So again, it's the same thing as your phone calls. You want to segment different types of callers, and then we need to answer the problems. What's the pain that that person's feeling, and then solve that for them.
So it sounds like you have fairly defined playbooks and deep knowledge of different types of practice. So, like you would approach somebody that got a DUI is more urgent to have them take action right now versus somebody that's maybe thinking about having a will done. Maybe needs a lot of nurturing because it's not as urgent in most cases.
Yep. Oh, and again, we are going to follow our client's lead. So I have the way I would like things to handle. Again, I would want it segmented based on what they need. If somebody had their kids just removed from the home, we're going to need to get them in right away.
Hmm.
Somebody who is doing an amicable divorce might be able to wait a few more days. So it's really, gauging. And what I wish that our clients would do is we use Acuity Scheduling. Love Acuity. I recommend it to everyone. You can actually set up your appointment availability by the
Hmm.
case type. And I don't see enough people doing that. I wish they would, because it will really help the attorneys manage their schedules better and keep them from getting flooded with things that are really not urgent.
And so we have attorneys that use Acuity and they embed it right in their website, which allows a client to kind of self-select and put themselves into the schedule, which, if you're monetizing it right out of the gate using the software to do that, that's one thing. But if you're allowing them to just kind of occupy your calendar, that's another thing. Do you have customers or clients that use Acuity or let's say Calendly or something like that, that don't really make it public facing, that just make it more available to your staff, or do they all make it public facing on their websites as well?
Most of them do not make it public facing. They,
Mm.
again, we have it set up pretty much the way the public would
Hmm.
see it, but we're also having a conversation with the client. And so
Hmm.
we're doing the intake as we go along. I'm not a, I love that you can schedule yourself. I love the convenience of it. It's great when you're getting your nails done.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe it's okay if you're just booking a free consult. But I've also seen attorneys get so buried by too many appointments that I also feel like a gatekeeper is really helpful for your sanity.
Well, especially if your marketing is super effective and you have like saturation. So, you hear a lot of the SEO types that cold call law firms, they focus on hits, clicks, traffic. Well, with hits, clicks, and traffics comes a lot of noise. And, I remember I used to, when I was a very young lawyer, take walk-ins, and almost 100% of the people that walked into my office were there to waste my time or tell me a really crazy story and make me wonder, am I going to be able to get this person out of my office without being attacked or, something else bad happening? And so, yeah, it's having that layer of screening through you all makes a lot of sense. And we talk about that with our customers using the content on their website to also help people pre-screen themselves. So if you read this or you listen to this video, you can understand whether we're a good match for you. And the more
Absolutely.
the more points of qualification, I think the better. So I think you're providing a very valuable service there as well. And it's really interesting how you can use any of those off the shelf type calendaring systems to match what the law firm wants to use and kind of adapt. I think that flexibility is really key.
Absolutely.
Um,
My laptop is about to die. It is plugged into a dead outlet. Can you believe it? I just got a warning.
I, okay, so let's wrap this up because we're right at the hour, anyways. Let's talk about your offer. And if I lose you between now and then, I will tell people about the offer.
I think we'll be fine. So my offer is visit backofficebetties.com/lawlytics. And I want to give away my wildly effective intake script builder. I put a lot of work into creating this thing, and so we typically do sell it for about $299. But the truth of the matter is, I care more about the law firms having something that's going to increase conversions. And again, you know, I love it that there's so many people who've held my hand, and I want to kind of hold the hand of others. So I would love it if people would download it, get it there for free, and implement it into their firms. And I would really like to know how it's made an improvement on conversions and just a good client experience on the upfront.
Great. Well, we will put a picture of that in the video. We'll put a link to it along with the show notes in the blog post associated with the podcast video. And I encourage anybody who's listening who is um, a solo practitioner or a small law firm or even larger law firms that needs intake or even wants to explore making their intake better to one, download that, and two, talk with Emily and her team. Not all intake companies are created equal, and Emily's is really special for a lot of reasons. So, Emily, thank you for coming on. It's been a long overdue conversation between us. Really excited to have you on and to introduce you in a more in-depth way to our members and our larger audience as well. So, anything else you want the listeners to know before we wrap here?
That is it. Just smile. Good vibes.